Less Taken contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Less Taken.
Nearly everyone has a lost loved one they wish they could speak to one last time. For some, maybe it's to share one last laugh. Maybe to simply say goodbye. For others, it comes after years of sorrow and a desperate crawl toward a better, or less bleak, tomorrow. These motivations, amongst others, are why a clandestine group of women, nearly a dozen members all told, gather in St. Louis, Missouri during the spring of 1916. They've all united in a front to locate the boundary between mortality and the afterlife. Not only that, but they also come together to push said boundary until it bends or breaks. They're all here to contact lost relatives and say whatever it is that needs to be said. Words that should have been spoken long ago, before it was too late. They're here to contact the dead, and they're confident they can do it. In front of them is a recently polished wooden table and a Ouija board neatly placed at the center. A few of the women are hesitant at the mere sight of the board, while a couple of others are enthralled as they reach out for the planchette. Most notable amongst the group are Lola-hays, the medium leading tonight's proceedings, and emily-hutchings. Freelance writing is Emily's game, and her works appear in the Atlantic Monthly, Cosmopolitan, and it's also said that she's secretly the author of the St. Louis Globe-Democrat's gossip column. Ostensibly, Emily's writing has little to do with the gathering, though. There's another side to Emily. She's a spiritualist. The moment she got wind of the group's meeting with Lola, Emily had to be in. She turns toward Lola and asks if they should begin. Lola nods and then looks around the half circle, ensuring she makes eye contact with each person as she nods. She tells them,
The veil is thin tonight.
Everyone places their quivering hands on the planchette. It's cool to the touch. Lola calls out into the darkness, attempting to persuade any of the deceased to come forward. For the longest time, no one does. Maybe they're doing something wrong. Maybe some of them have some questions when it comes to spiritualism. Maybe it's just that no one wants to speak to them. Then, suddenly, their eyes spring up from their Ouija board. Many of the women look shocked or even scared. Emily and Lola flash wide expressions of wild excitement. The planchette guides them around the board. However, it doesn't settle on any particular letter.
To whom do we have the pleasure of speaking?
The planchette moves again, this time hovering over the letter L. It slowly drifts to the letter A next, then Z, then Y. Lazy. Maybe this spirit misunderstood, whoever they are. Did Lola misspeak? The planchette freezes at the center of the board for a few moments. Emily and Lola aren't quite sure what they can do with the word lazy. Is their attempt at contacting the dead being called lazy by a wandering spirit? The sensation comes over Emily, Lola, and the rest of the group again. The planchette is about to guide them once more. They just know it. And it does. S, another A, and finally, they stop at the letter M. Vexed, Lola says,
Lazy Sam?
The planchette moves to yes in the Ouija board. Lola then asks,
Are you a relative, Lazy Sam?
Their hands are guided to no on the board. Lola asks,
What's your last name, Lazy Sam?
Lola asked that question, but none of them are prepared to find out who Lazy Sam truly is. The planchette moves again. C-L-E-M-E-N-S. Clement. You're listening to Lazy Sam, the fourth story from Less Taken, Season 3. In this episode, we explore the story of a group of spiritualists who inadvertently contact the spirit of a legendary American author, one that has a final wish for them to carry out. Please let us know what you think of this episode when you're done by leaving us a fair rating and review wherever you're listening. You can also leave reviews, send comments, and even recommend a future story idea at our official website, lesstakenpod.com. There, we also share updates, additional media, all of our episodes, sources, merch, and more. The site also has a new look. A few pages are still being updated, but you should still check it out. And the merch has been refreshed too. For instance, we have a coffee called Witch's Grave now. You can save $1 on Witch's Grave by using the code LazySam at checkout. And be sure to follow us before we follow you on Instagram and Facebook under the handle @lesstakenpod. On Instagram, we like to share illustrated samples of our episodes, so maybe take a look there. For our new listeners, Less Taken is a podcast that examines reportedly real-life horror stories from all around the Midwest United States, dramatizes them with detailed soundscaping, and, when necessary, debunks falsehoods. I'm CM Humphreys, and this is Less Taken, real-life horror stories from the Midwest. Once again, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy Lazy Sam. Emily meeting Lola-Hays comes after a series of odd coincidences. Tonight's hostess informs Emily of a secret society meeting after learning that the writer holds an interest in all things psychic, cosmic, and spiritual. Emily attends. The lecturer runs late, so Lola-Hays takes the stage and demonstrates her ability to communicate with the deceased, with a little help from her personal Ouija board. And now, they're speaking with the ghost of Mark Twain. As part of her demonstration, Lola completely takes over, and the planchette continues to soar around the board, spelling out unusual and sometimes personal phrases and jabs. Mostly, they're short, dry bits of humor. Samuel L. Clemens, Lazy Sam, the spirit spells out. Well, why don't some of you say something? There's a traffic jam of questions in Emily's mind, but she can't find the gumption to say anything out loud. Here she is, a freelance writer, with a chance opportunity to ask one of the greatest humorists anything she wants, and she can't even muster a whisper. She's not alone. The room remains hushed. There are astonished gasps and murmurs sprinkled about, but no one really says anything. Emily remains silent because she's an outsider and isn't sure what's considered acceptable behavior. She doesn't know why the rest of the room stays quiet, though. Maybe that's how this entire thing goes. Emily doesn't know, so she doesn't speak up. The planchette begins to scroll along the Ouija board once again. Lola-Hays chooses not to look at the board any more than she has to. She claims it interferes with the communication. Say, folks, don't knock my memoirs too hard, the spirit spells out. They were written when Mark Twain was dead to all sense and decency. When brains are soft, the method should be anesthesia. No one in the room responds. The lecturer finally shows up at the dusty parlor, interrupting the seance. Emily wishes she could have found the nerves to say something to the spirit of Mark Twain when she still had the chance. But the communication, or transmission, or whatever, was interrupted the moment the lecturer stepped into the room. Before she misses out on another opportunity, Emily thanks the hostess and asks if she can continue joining their meetings. She also wants to know if there's a way that she and Lola-Hays can meet occasionally and try to continue speaking with the spirit of Mark Twain. It's a yes to both questions. To Emily's surprise, she's invited to meet with Lola-Hays in person. There's no lecturer, no hostess, just Emily and the medium. Lola believes she can connect with Mark Twain again. Perhaps such a thing becomes easier after the initial conversation. And after some small talk, Lola leads Emily to a room where a rather large Ouija board awaits them. Lola-Hays pleads with the author, begging for the spirit that identifies as Mark Twain to come out from within the shadows of the room. And he does. The planchette slides along the board, underneath Lola's hand. Emily reads out each letter as it's revealed. She tries to restrain herself, worried that Lola doesn't want the letters to be read out loud, but the medium approves, as she'd rather not look at the board. I-T-R-I-E-D. I tried, Emily whispers. I tried to write a romance novel once, and the little wife laughed at it. I still think it's good stuff, and I want it written. The plot is simple. You best skeletonize the plot. There's a moment of silence in which Emily wonders why the spirit of Mark Twain would ever select her to complete his unfinished work. But the spirit has an answer for that too. Emily whispers the words as they're spelled out beneath the ringed fingers of Lola-Hays. Every scribe here wants a pencil on Earth. The transmissions continue over a course of days, which become weeks and then months. Sometimes they come in smoothly, and Emily can discern every movement along the Ouija board for Lola-Hays. Other times, the communication is messy. The planchette races around erratically. Sometimes the spirit of Mark Twain interrupts their meetings, calling them to an abrupt end with phrases such as, "You are too tired. Forces must be strong for results. I was afraid of femininity. Women have their ideas, but this is not a woman's story. Goodbye." Sometimes, he's critical of Lola and Emily's works with words like, "It started good, but will you two ladies stop speculating? Don't try to dictate. You're interrupting the thread of the story. I think that is all we can do tonight. The forces are not strong enough tonight." Lola, Emily, and sometimes Emily's husband, Edwin, continue reaching for their planchette on a regular basis, scribbling down every last word from the spirit of Mark Twain. The stories flow. First, Mark Twain dictates a few different stories, but the one that sticks out is called Jap-herron. The planchette skirts around the Ouija board so quickly that Emily hardly has the time to discern the communication. Her only job is to spell out the words, but the planchette is a mere blur. Through the summer, well into the fall, Emily continues to meet up with Lola and work on what will become known as the novelette, Jap-herron, a novel written from the Ouija board. Both she and the spirit insist on having the work published, and the humorist would love nothing more than to produce a posthumous masterpiece. How will the rest of America feel about a story told by the alleged ghost of Mark Twain? "187 pages. Emily has 187 pages, or 240 in some runs, of what she swears on her grave is the work of Mark Twain, 7 years after his death, as transcribed from an Ouija board. Many publishers are skeptical of the novelette. The story is set in a Missouri town and follows Jasper James Herron, nicknamed Jap, who is born into poverty, and then, with the guidance of a kind-hearted man and woman, grows into a notable and useful individual who eventually contributes to the betterment of his hometown. It reads very much like the previous writings of Mark Twain, but it's not the story that worries some of the publishers or its style. It's the author and how she arrived at the tale. The stories of seances don't resonate with many of them. However, one can't help but hold a morbid curiosity when the tagline for the book is a novel written from the Ouija board, and Emily eventually finds a publisher in Mitchell Kennerly. Once distribution of the book begins, word starts to circulate about an author who claims she used an Ouija board to speak with Mark Twain and help him write one last story. Given the growing popularity of spiritualism and the growing awareness of Ouija boards, many readers are line, hooked, and sinkered. Soon, reviews ensue, and they'll be the make or break of Emily's reputation as a writer. A dead American author scrawling from beyond the grave. A medium helping an aspiring young woman cement herself as a writer. The backstory of Jap-herron is enough to cause copies of the novelette to fly off bookstore shelves. The San Francisco Chronicle is one of the first papers to print a review of Jap-herron, applauding both the narrative of the book and its authenticity. Although it does come from a bit of a sexist angle, as the reviewers insist that two women couldn't have captured the essence of Mark Twain in such a way. For the most part, so far, so good. Jap-herron is a hit all around Missouri, especially in St. Louis, Hannibal, and the town of Florida. Then, the New York Times gets hold of the manuscript and holds a much different opinion of the story and the book's legitimacy. They write in part, "The humor impresses as a feeble attempt at imitation, and while there is now and then a strong, sure touch of pathos or a swift and true revelation of human nature, the sob stuff that oozes through many of the scenes and the overdrawn emotions are too much for credulity. If this is the best that Mark Twain can do by reaching across the barrier, the army of admirers that his works have won for him all hope that he will, hereafter, respect that boundary." The Oakland Tribune holds a similar sentiment as they write, "Jap-herron, without Mark Twain's name, would find ready sale as an interesting story in which humor and pathos are mingled. Had Mark Twain written it while he was still alive, it is probable that his publishers would have advised against its appearance for in no way could it do anything but detract from his reputation. The style is not Mark Twain's, the choice of words is not his, and to the lover of the humorist, the book is in no other way his. The poor reviews of Jap-herron continue to pour in, and they hurt the book's sales over time. Still, the cynical reviews are far from the worst thing to happen to the book and Emily's career. No matter what anyone else claims, Emily sticks to her story. She explains that she's from Hannibal, the boyhood home of one Samuel Clemens. That's why he chose her to write Jap-herron. Their meeting was completely coincidental, as she expected Lola-hays to actually contact a lost loved one. She reiterates the painstaking dedication required to produce such a book, and how she often found herself on the wrong side of a classic Mark Twain roast and scolding. She can say all she wants, but Emily's story has earned her an enemy and the worst person possible: Twain's daughter, Clara. George Clara Twain is informed of the novelette's existence, and at once, she wants to set every last copy ablaze. Not for 1 second does she believe that her father somehow came back from beyond the grave to speak to some con artist medium and a desperate gossip columnist. Along with her father's publishers, Clara sets out to stop Mitchell Kennerly from producing any additional copies of Jap-herron and to seize all the remaining books. The latter might be tricky, but Clara insists that all this foolishness stops. She considers Jap-herron as an obvious and disgusting ploy to exploit her father's good reputation in the name of selling some imitation novelette by comparatively a voiceless entity in the publishing landscape. Clara is the sole surviving heir and the executive of her father's estate. This means she owns all properties, writings, and likenesses of her father. It should be fairly simple to execute Jap-herron and deter any other writer from trying such a revolting act again. There's a slight problem, though. Clara and the publishers are surprised when they try to place what amounts to a cease and desist order on Jap-herron. At this point in history, they can't legally prove that Jap-herron wasn't written by the spirit of Mark Twain. Clara and Mark Twain's publishers decide to approach Emily's Jap-herron novelette the good old-fashioned American way. They go to the courts and file a lawsuit against Emily and her publisher, claiming that if Jap-herron is indeed the work of Clara's father, or even his ghost, then she can claim full undisputed ownership of the work. More to the point, this lawsuit means that Emily will not receive a single dime in royalties from any future sales of Jap-herron, and she may very well need to turn over her current earnings to the Mark Twain estate, which belongs to Clara. The only way for Emily to continue receiving some sort of money from Jap-herron, assuming Clara is feeling generous or even sympathetic, is for Emily to admit on the record that Jap-herron is, in its entirety, the byproduct of her and only her imagination. Tying Mark Twain with the novelette is simply an impactful yet ill-thought-out marketing ploy. She's torn between standing beside her story and trying to pay the rent. The problem with saying the spirit didn't write Jap-herron is that then no one will want to read it. What good are the royalties of a book that doesn't sell? Worse, everyone will think of Jap-herron as a hoax and Emily as a fraudster. She's not sure what she's going to do. There's nowhere for Emily to turn. If she sticks to her story, Clara and the Mark-Twain estate receive ownership of jap-herron and all monies therein. She'll be broke, and she'll lose her sense of authorship. If she, in Clara's words, comes clean, then she'll still be broke and never publish again. If Emily goes to court with Clara, there's no way that the writer comes out as a winner and escapes humiliation. Emily forfeits and agrees to cease all publication of jap-herron and to destroy all of the remaining copies. For the Clemens family, none of this is enough. In 1932, a series of Mark Twain's letters are published by Cyril Clemens, cousin of Mark Twain, several of which belong to Emily-Hutchings. Many of these letters involve Emily begging Mark Twain for writing advice. Sometimes, he obliges her, but he never really develops a relationship or a liking. After reading one letter, he sealed it back up in the envelope and wrote the word idiot in big letters across the front before filing it away in a box. Emily-Hutchings dies in 1960 in her home along the central West End after battling with dementia for years. In obituaries, few only recount her as more than the widow of Edwin Hutchings. No one writes a word about her literary career or her meeting with the spirit of Mark Twain. Jap-herron is just a whisper of the past. But there are a few places you can find a copy of jap-herron today, and one of them is Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum in Hannibal, Missouri. Another is at lesstakenpod.com. Thank you for listening to Lazy Sam, the fourth story from Less Taken, Season 3. Please let us know what you think of this episode by leaving a fair rating and review wherever you're listening. You can also submit your reviews at our website, lesstakenpod.com. Not only can you review the show at our website, but you can also write to us, as well as suggest ideas for future episodes. Once again, the website's gotten a bit of a facelift and our merch has been refreshed. It's still a work in progress, but be sure to check it out. We now have a medium roast coffee called Witch's Grave up for sale on the site. Give it a try, use the code LazySam to save yourself $1 at checkout. If you truly enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe with auto downloads on and tell a friend. It all truly helps. Follow us before we follow you on Facebook and Instagram and sometimes Threads under the handle at lesstakenpod for updates, media, and more. On Instagram, we like to drop early samples of our episodes too. One last way to support the show is by buying us a cup of coffee at buymeacupofcoffee.com/lesstakenpod. The link is in the episode notes. A quick note on our storytelling. While we do our best to stick to the facts, we sometimes take creative liberties to maintain narrative cohesiveness. I'm CM Humphreys, and this is Less Taken, real-life horror stories from the Midwest. Thanks for listening, and I hope you join us next Wednesday for a preview of story number 5 from Less Taken, Season 3.
Chase County.